We're back here on Riffing It Up in our third count with our special guest, former NWA world champion, Tim Storm. Tim, I do got a question. I know a while ago we mentioned about, giving, joking about giving Brian the claw and things like that, but when are we going to see you give Jared Fritz at NWA the claw? That's going to be all. That's where our money's at right there.
If you're asking, you missed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happened. It's happened.
It's happened.
Well,
that
sucks. One of the fun things about this gimmick is once again, I'm an attraction, and doesn't mean an attraction can't lose. It just means you have to come up with unique ways. And one of those ways was the Baron got the claw on the ref by mistake, and of course it's a DQ. But you got to lose a match somehow. And
did he sell it?
Yeah,
he was accused of overselling it.
Oh,
that sounds like Jared Fritz.
I'm not saying he did. I'm just saying he was accused of it. So you
Rumor
can accuse
has it,
stuff
right?
as much as you want. I'm going to be okay with it.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Like
man.
that doesn't happen much anymore, overselling. Anyway.
Do that.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I see. My question is, I like diving into your mind a little bit with other stuff. Like you mentioned being a part of a tag team, a successful tag team. If you can go back to any era, not just present era, but any era, who would your dream partner be, and what would the team name be?
Oh, I've never come up with the name, but I'm just going to be transparent, man. I am a huge Dusty Rhodes mark.
Oh,
And Brian, you may or may not remember this, but my ode to Dusty when we started taping is I went to full on Dusty boots, and I have like 6 pair of the double eagles in different colors, and that was pure me wanting to be Dusty. And a lot of my promos, if you pick them apart, you'll go, "That's right, that was a Dusty. That was a nod to Dusty," because I just that charisma, And plus, man, if I'd have been in an era when that body was cool, I could have eaten a lot of pizza. So
Can I suggest a name?
Sure.
For a tag team, you and the American Dream, the Storm Dreamers.
I love it. Let's do it.
ooh.
I like it. I love it. Seriously, I have a lot of influences, tons of influences of all different, but yeah, Dusty's just has had, and getting to spend a little bit of time with him, as you guys have, I'm sure, over the years, but to get to spend a little bit of time, it's just, I'm sure he thought I was weird staring at his mouth because I was like, anything that comes out is gold. I got to hang on to every minute. So, that's good stuff.
All right, so Tim, I know a few things about you that other people don't.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, not bad. There's nothing you do bad.
That's not true.
Well,
I just keep it to myself. I do it privately.
Okay, well, you keep that to yourself then. We're a family show.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Anyway, there's 3 things that I know that you like to do.
Okay.
I know you love to eat, and you eat massively.
I love to eat.
Yeah, yes, you do, and you eat as much as I drink.
Hey, now, easy.
Wow,
let's not exaggerate.
Okay, well, close.
Okay.
You love to train.
I do.
Love to hit the gym.
Yep.
And you love to tan.
All of those things, yes.
Okay. Well, I need you now to break this down because I know the answer to this.
Okay.
Why is tanning so important to Tim Storm?
Okay,
you told me this. If you
I did. It kind of took on a life of its own after a while. Just so you know, it became my gimmick, and it was like, and you guys know Tom Latimer. Tom and I had we have now, it's unspoken because I have said
a tan off. Please say tan off.
Yes. Every show we'd walk up and it'd be, I think, and he's always like, "No, you still got me. You still got me." But sometimes I'm not sure I do. But here's for me what had happened. I learned early on for me that tan fat looks better than white fat. And under the lights, if you give me glaring white lights and I'm 15 pounds overweight, then it's going to really show up. But you give me tan and it may look like 5 pounds overweight. So, and so I can, and I just learned, I made a commitment to myself. This again, it's my age, but when I turned 40, I remember saying, I've either got to lose weight or I got to get out. because my back was hurting, my knees are hurting, I don't look good, and I was at about 320. And
Good Lord.
yeah, and I went on the low carb, now high protein, and I think the lowest I got is I did a fitness contest. It was on my bucket list, and I think I got down to about 215 for 15 or 20 minutes. Before, no, and that's legit because you walk off stage and start eating. But a good weight for me was about 245, 250, and that's an ongoing battle. Like you said, I love to eat, man, and if I'm not in the gym and I'm not doing all those things, and I gain weight fast if I don't. So I think 256 this morning, and I still need to lose about 6 pounds.
So Tim, you're married, right?
Yeah, 37 years.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
congrats.
Good Lord. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Does she tan?
Not anymore. We actually met. We were both lifeguards.
At a tanning bed. Oh, okay.
No, I had lifeguard. We were outdoors. No, it was a full-time tanning bed outdoors, and we both were. That was our ongoing argument. It was like, I think I'm darker than you. No, we're just different colors, and that was kind of our way to get out of the argument. But yeah, well, I say that my wife retired this year and told me that she laid out by the pool today. So yeah, I guess she does.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because you can't be. Listen, I know how dark you are. It is completely insane. But you can't be running around as dark as you are with some albino wife.
She's not.
Okay.
She has her. She used to be darker than me. True story.
What?
Yeah.
What?
She has that. Wow, this sounds terrible, and I mean this as a compliment. But she has that really dark, almost leather brown, not leather skin, leather brown, right? But over the years, like I said, she just retired and she was a workaholic, so she wasn't tanning over the last 10 years like she used to. But no albinos there. But I remember the first time I saw her was blonde hair, blue eyes, and tan. I was like, yep, that's the one. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, Tim, you brought up Tom Latimer, and he's your current NWA heavyweight champion. He's been one of those guys going back years. I'm sure Brian worked with him both there at the NWA, and I believe you worked with him when he was Bram, right, Brian?
Yes, in TNA. Yep.
Okay. So what are your thoughts about how he's been defending the title, holding the title, going against, we're going to see him at the Crockett Cup against Rhino. He's taking it all over the country, all over the world. Just your thoughts on how he's making out as champion.
He's doing an incredible job. That's just it. And I know there is not a bigger Tom Latimer fan than me as a wrestler or as a person. I love him to death. I know when he won the title, I think he had, I don't want to say be overlooked because didn't he have the TNA title as Bram?
He didn't win the world title, no.
Okay.
Oh.
I felt like for NWA, that he had been overlooked over and over and over and over and over. He wasn't getting the shots that I thought he should get.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when he won it, I went to him and I gave him a day or two, and I, as the old veteran former champ, I said, hey, Tom, I wanted to give this time for to let this settle in for you, because it is that NWA World's title belt that's 10 pounds of gold, Sweet Charlotte. It has an aura about it, unlike just about any other, in my opinion. Again, I'm biased, and I said, I just want you to know that there is nobody that deserves this more than you. There is nobody better prepared. There's nobody that works harder. There's nobody that's paid a higher price than you personally and professionally, and you're going to kill this. And I don't know that Tom would care if I said this or not, but I think the only thing that he's ever lacked in some of those is confidence. And now he is fully confident. He knows what he can do. He's just as good as everybody has said he was, and he's killing it right now. He's killing it.
So let me ask you this. Do you remember, the importance of this? So you were one of the main people that when Billy decided to invest in the NWA, he pulled in a handful of people. Nick Aldis was one of them. You were one of them. I was one of them. Eli Drake was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm missing some, but I'm saying the main core where we were just going to other companies and working for them.
Right.
Do you remember that New Jersey show we did where it was you and Nick Your first expression. I think it was CZW.
Was CZW?
Where we did our thing and said, fuck this and let's get out of here.
Well, I'm laughing because that's this here. I remember this differently the most because that's where I dropped the title to Nick.
Yes.
Which caught a lot of heat because a lot of people were like, why would you drop it at CZW, which is known for its hardcore wrestling? But truthfully, at the time, like you're saying, we didn't have our own TV. We didn't have our own programming. So we were always looking for places that presented in a good way, that had good TV, a good production value. Man, and you know this better. It's like I knew I was dropping. We got there, and I'll just out because I don't know these guys. But their own at the time. Help me out here, but that was MJF. That was Joey Janela.
Yep.
That was, I mean, their guys that they had lined up were great workers and just getting better. But they had been told, you're going to go out there and cut a promo, and whoever cuts the best promo gets a shot against Tim Storm for the world title.
Yep.
That wasn't true, and we didn't tell them that. That's what their promoter told them. So we go out there, and every one of them came out and took their best shot, and were pissed when Nick came out. Because the whole setup was, Nick was the whole time. And you talk about ducks out of water. I mean, I walked out in a suit at CZW as an old school, 55-year-old NWA World's Champion at CZW right after a opening match that had
barbed wire,
cut Coke cans, packs, light bulb in an opening match, and they booed me to death just because of the way I looked and who I represented. Turns out our segment went way long, and what did Nick and I get for me to drop of about 4.5 minutes? And
it was the easiest pay of my day.
It wasn't great for me. It was not great for me. No, but you know this, and I'm just honest. Nick carried me in those matches, and I remember somebody coming to me one time and going, "Were you able to sit down and help Nick? As a former champion?" I'm like, "No, Nick helped me from the very first match when they started working."
Right.
And I asked Nick, and he goes, "Here's my advantage." He said, "There's the advantage I had." He said, "I got a doctorate." He said, "Where most people are breaking in." He said, "When I got to TNA on any given night, I was working AJ, Samoa Joe, Sting, Jeff Jarrett." He went, he goes, that's where I learned. He said, right. So Nick carried me in those matches, and I did my best to keep up and represent well.
I just remember this, and guys, y'all go on if you want. I just remember that we found out when we left because we all went out and hung out.
That was the Applebee's.
Yes. And they had a riot.
Yep.
They had a riot that night. We left because we were all like, screw this shit. We got to get out of here.
We were upstairs, and Nick better than I do, but I know Nick pretty well. So Nick and I are up there, and we're watching, and all these guys are walking by, and Nick goes, "You know what? We're an effing wrestling company. Do any of these guys go to the gym?"
Right. Yeah.
And the guy's sitting there lacing up his boots. He goes, "Hello, sitting right here." Nick was like, "Go to the gym, anyway."
I rode up with Nick that night, or that day. And I remember it going, I don't know what in the world we're doing. I don't have any clue, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're getting ready to go to a place where it's filth, where there's a bunch of nasty, stupid shooters that want to use glass, and chairs, and barbed wire. I can tell you right now, I am dressing way away from them. You're going to be with me. I'm going to tell Tim Storm, bring your ass over here too, because we're not going to be associated with this fucking company. I don't know what kind of business we're going to do. We're going to do the business, and we're going to get the fuck out of here.
And we did.
It's amazing because I had this conversation not just a couple of days ago. You know who that reminds me of, the way you presented that, Brian? William Regal. Because
I was going to say, yeah.
Because I was going to say the pleasure, but not so much the pleasure. I've witnessed a few incidents, locker room incidents, and William Regal is always that calming force where even though he wants to, okay, gentlemen, take it easy. Calm down. No need to get rough. It's just you don't want to do this right now. You don't want the office to find out. You know, that kind of stuff.
I don't think the office finding out was ever one of Nick's mantras, though. I think that
No. Well, Tim,
Good.
touching on Nick real quick. Obviously, you watch current product, correct?
Yes, some.
Some. Okay. Well, Nick's in a big spot. We talked earlier on our show before we, had you in after eating all our steaks.
They were great too, by the way.
Well,
Well done.
thank you. I know how you like them.
I do.
That almost red and nasty.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
Perfect. Every time I'm nasty, it's perfect.
that's not perfect,
Oh.
Daniel. Did you learn that from Earl too? You son of a.
Perfect.
But anyway, so we're having a little,
Mhm.
I don't know, what is it called, Jimmy? A hypothesis that maybe this could happen.
Well, for me, wishful thinking.
Okay, where Nick gets a big spot at WrestleMania and faces none other than the Viper, Randy Orton. Your thoughts? I will leave it at that.
I think it should happen, and I think it's I don't want to say a travesty because we know Nick, we know how talented he is. He deserves that opportunity, and what a great way to get his introduction would be at WrestleMania against Randy Orton as his first match there. After, because you guys know, I'm assuming, but I mean, that's one of those deals where he wanted to be there, over the years several times and just never got the door wasn't opening. I don't know if he will with the injury to Kevin Owens. I think this is the smart way. This is the smart way to go, and I don't know what the alternative is. And I think that if and then they do, but if they book it right, he's the authority figure that people don't know. I've known Nick now for whatever it's been, 7, 8 years, and you've known him longer. But to this day, if I run into Nick, I'm still going, is he really that big? I mean,
He's a big dude, man.
He's
Yeah.
legitimate 6'4.5", maybe 6'5". Don't know what his body fat is, but obviously he's got the background with the British technical wrestling. But because I felt it every match we were ever in, he can hit that elbow off the top rope. He can brawl with anybody. I think it would surprise people. Now I don't know how they would try to book it since he's the manager, and truthfully, most of those people probably don't remember him wrestling that much.
Here's the smart thing, Tim, that I think WWE's done. I really do. And I've thought this since day one. Nick's still young.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think this was a way for him to be introduced to the WWE universe.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to stay there. He's not going to stay as that guy.
Right.
He's constantly staying. He's getting bigger in his suits week by week. I mean, the grand scheme of things, which I think WWE's so smart on, okay, they snided him for so long. And for what reason? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Someone saw what should have been seen a long time ago. And I believe that this is their way of saying, okay, guys, we want you all to know who he is. We'll fill you in later, but he's going to be a player.
Yeah.
And I think that the injury to, Owens, unfortunately,
right,
is the quicker door for him, which how things work in life.
Yeah.
And
here's something that Nick told me in the early NWA stuff. Because he had and maybe you guys know the timeline better than I do, but when he left TNA, there was what do you think? Maybe 8 months, a year, where he basically sat out of wrestling. Is that about right?
Yes.
He was not the first choice. I think, man, my mind just went blank. Drew McIntyre was actually the first choice for the slot to win the title. And while he was with Dave out doing shoots, got the call, which became kind of the early model for 10 Pounds of Gold, because he was out, filming that stuff with him. He got that call. But Nick told me when he came in and was slotted, we were building up to dropping the title. He said, here's the funny thing. he said a lot of people were worried that all they would ever be able to see was gosh, what was his TNA name that he hated so much?
Magnus.
Brutus or Magnus?
Yeah, Magnus. Yeah, he said people would, he said, but the funny thing is, most people don't remember Magnus. They know Nick Aldis, and he said, now I can paint that to be anything I want, right?
Right.
Now been 3 or 4 years, people don't necessarily remember Nick Aldis, NWA champion. They know he was, but they don't remember how good he was. Just like you're saying, what a great introduction and a way to walk him in and say, ta-da, guess what? I'm not just a general manager.
I just think that he would have to do the job there, but
yeah, I agree. But I don't think I don't.
No, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I really thought that the way it was going to work out, I thought it would be Scrap Daddy against Nick Aldis.
I think they were trying to go there at one point, weren't they, Jimmy?
Yeah. It felt like they were going that way for Survivor Series, having general manager versus or authority figure versus authority figure, Raw versus SmackDown, which I'd be all for too as well. So, but you're right, Tim. When I saw them on Friday night standing across from each other, him and Randy Orton, because Randy Orton's a big guy.
Yes, he is.
I mean, like
Randy's
standing
big.
next to Randy Orton, you're standing next to a redwood.
Yep.
And then you see that face to face, and you're going, "Oh," you forget that, and you go, "Wow, these guys match up physically, as well as we know they can both go in the ring." So, anyways, I'm fantasizing about it.
I hope it happens, and
I hope so too.
I consider Nick my friend, and I'm pulling for my friend as a talent. I think he needs that. He deserves that opportunity.
Yeah, but I got to go back now a little bit because you were talking about the CZW stuff, and everybody keeps talking about. I hate when they use this word for what some of the stuff we see today, the evolution of pro wrestling. It's sometimes what I see drives me. Now, obviously, you have a more grounded, old school philosophy. But what from this old school presentation of pro wrestling, for lack of a better term, do you think is missing today that they could incorporate better? Because it almost feels like, and I've heard it said by many others, that guys are relying more on moves as opposed to telling stories in the ring.
I think that's a given, and I think part of that is cultural. As I had opportunities. I was able to travel with some guys that, again, not going to be a name dropper, but I was able to travel at length with some guys who were on the first 3 WrestleManias and pick their brains in the car. And I just sat in the back and was quiet. Those road trips is where you shut your mouth and you listened and you learned. And that's not there anymore. That opportunity is not there anymore. I think WWE is doing a better job of, and they've always been the best at long-term storytelling. They don't necessarily rush anything. It's like, it's like Brian was saying, it's, they'll plant a seed and they may not come back to it for 6 or 8 months. But I think that, and part of that may be physical. I can't flippity flop. I can't do a 450 or any of that kind of stuff. And even at my youngest, most athletic, I wasn't doing that. So I've never been a flippity flop guy. There's a place for that, but I think that that's the biggest thing is I think we just need to focus on storytelling. And again, hate to keep bringing Nick up, but Nick started getting frustrated right before he left. And he was saying, what happened to there's a good guy and there's a bad guy and we're fighting for something that means something. Because that old school is always going to work. It's always going to, you tell a good story, you fight for something that means something, and it's always going to work. I think that's what's getting lost, and I'm not pointing a finger at any particular organization, but I just think simplify, and again, there's a place for everything. When you say CZW, I would never bash what they do because there's people out there that love that. I went to a Dr. Tom seminar 15 years ago, and you guys have heard this too, but it's there's a reason why there's so many flavors of ice cream. And his flavor may not be my favorite flavor, but that doesn't make it wrong. So, all those flavors of ice cream, all those different types of wrestling, as long as there's somebody out there that thinks it's the best flavor, then it has a place.
Yeah. We got a listener question here from WWE Master 2018. He wants to know that how did you respond to critics when you won the heavyweight title there with the NWA, like you mentioned, at the age of 50, 51, 52, in that neighborhood? How'd you respond to that?
That was probably my introduction to I need to not listen to the noise because and I'm being honest, if people forget that whatever level that we're on, what doesn't matter if you're top, if you're the top WWE guy or you're a local independent, you're still people. And if you yell loud enough, hey, you suck, at some points you may touch a nerve. I just kind of had to stop. I looked at it like this. I grew up my life. I grew up loving professional wrestling. I grew up respecting, and to me, there was nothing greater for me than those guys that we've talked about. Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Funks, Harley Race, Ricky Steamboat, AJ Styles. You go through the list and you say, okay, well, these guys were NWA World's Heavyweight Champions. And that's to me what wrestling was. The night that I won that title, I had one thought. I may hold this for 3 days. I may hold it for 3 weeks, but they can't take my name off that list. And to me, that's all I needed. Doesn't matter how old I was. It doesn't matter how, have I ever been one of the top 25, 50 wrestlers in the world? No, probably not. But I take the craft seriously and I love the business. I worked hard. I try to be professional at everything I do. And just like the ice cream flavor, I wasn't everybody's flavor of ice cream. Doesn't matter that, somebody out there liked what I was doing, and that's good enough for me.
That's amazing, dude. It really, really, truly is. I, I, I hate this portion of our show, but it has to happen. We're going to give the floor to you. We want you to put your social medias out, promote NWA, please. We here at Reffing It Up really support you NWA guys. We had on, I call Thirsty, who you know as Anthony.
Danny Deals.
Danny Deals.
KCO.
I'm not calling him Danny Deals. But the floor is yours, my friend, and put out all your socials, promote NWA, and once again, like I said, here at Reffing Up, we support you guys. We watch you guys. We love it, and I'm in close contact with Joe Galley trying to get your talents, on here. So anyway, the floor is yours.
Just Tim Storm 01, Instagram, emails, Tim Storm on Facebook. And really, I think at this point, I know that I'm going to be super positive here. I know that right now we're airing our shows on X. I would highly recommend anybody who hasn't, if you want to know and respect the great Jax Dane, go watch tonight's episode. It was very much a tribute to Jax. If that's your introduction to true emotion and true love of the business, then go watch that. Again, not for everybody, but it's for a lot of people. Go out there and watch it. NWA Power every week right now on Twitter until there's a different platform. We're also still I know this last weekend, and Brian, I don't know if you knew this or not, but they went back and we're doing like a kind of a revisit of season 1.
Yes, I did see that.
Previous weekend was the Crockett Cup, and that happened to be where the Briscoes won the cup. And, so there's a lot of good things going on out there. I would just encourage anybody that loves old school professional wrestling to take a look, because I think it'll surprise you. And again, if you watch it and go, that's not for me, that's okay too. It's not for everybody, but you may be surprised.
Now, if you remember first season, The Rock tweeted.
Absolutely.
And came out and said, this is some good shit. Y'all need to check this out.
Yep.
The Rock.
Absolutely. Yeah. And he knows a little bit about wrestling. So, I mean, it's
a little bit.
Who did he ever beat?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. You triggered a story. Stupid story, but I have to tell you. So, independent show in Benton, Arkansas. Card is loaded. Legit. It's loaded. I think the main event was AJ Styles against Steve Anthony, but everybody, tons of people on the card. that particular night, it was me and a couple of our guys, our little faction, against Ricky and Robert and another one of our local guys. We go out to eat. We go to the bar afterwards, and it's Ricky, Robert, and Bobby Eaton standing there.
Good
And
Lord.
AJ and I are sitting there with I don't know, Rob Conway and Jax, and we're all sitting there. And somebody comes up and says, "Hey, can we get a picture?" I, of course, think they mean AJ, right? I mean, I'm sorry, but I think AJ is one of those talented in the history of the business. And so I kind of move over and they say, no, not you guys, those guys. So they're talking about Ricky, Robert, and the man, Bobby Eaton. And I said, who have those guys ever beat? So and I think the answer is literally everybody.
Right. Literally
Yeah.
everybody.
Tremendous.
Well, awesome. Tim, thank you so much. And for all you out there who may have just heard about Tim Storm or know who Tim Storm is, you don't know the man inside. And Tim, I'll say this to you, man. You actually talked to me about drinking and how bad it was for me and stuff. And that's cool. I listened, but you are a genuine, heartfelt guy and a guy that you're right. You're a truthful guy. You're just a good human being and deserve everything that you get. And I am so happy to see you still going in some capacity, even if it's at the, what did you call it? What was the Pat quote? What are you?
Oh, I'm an attraction. I'm an
attraction. Either way, seeing your face on TV makes me happy.
Thank you so much, guys. I think the world of you, Brian, or I wouldn't be talking to you. And I thank you guys. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me on.